Hello, everybody, hello. This is going to be a sort of like an old school Sean rant that we used to do on the main channel, youtube.com/copy that. This particular video is going to be about the topics of motivation, success, and failure, or at least the feelings of failure in copywriting. One thing that I want to talk about are the sort of like 5 different stages that a person needs to go through in order to be sort of successful with this particular career. I'm going to draw a little graph. This is going to be the axis of whether or not you are enjoying copywriting. And this is going to be the axis of time. This is something that a lot of newbies go through, is they enter into copywriting through some various means. Either you see a TikTok by Andrew Tate, or you started out as a writer and you sort of heard in your creative writing classes that there's this thing called copywriting, and like you can be a successful ad copywriter or what have you. Either way, the first little bump is you become aware of copywriting and you have a spike of interest in C. That is copywriting. And this spike of interest is what we could very charitably call inspiration. Boop, boop, boop. But there's a certain threshold at which point you actually do start seriously pursuing it, seriously studying it. There's basically a limit. And let's say it's like, we'll do a dotted line around here. And this dotted line is the threshold at which your interest in copywriting allows you to actually learn it, practice it, study it, think about it. If you're above this line, you are going to be actually doing the work. Now, here's the thing about inspiration. It is very fleeting. It is sort of a flash in the pan. Inspiration, for most people, it does not last forever. In fact, it dips very, very, very quickly. And one of the things with people that have a lot of inspiration is that they just, how do I say, they get really excited about it, but then they're like, okay, well, I want to be a freelance copywriter. What do I do next? And then they start discovering what it actually takes to become a copywriter. Now, here's the thing. A lot of YouTube videos very much focus on keeping the hype and inspiration alive. If you've seen any YouTube video that's like, how to go from $3,000 a month to $10,000 a month, how to get your first $5,000 client, how to write a $3,000 email in an hour or something like that. All that content is designed to sort of milk your inspiration glands. It's designed to make you go, oh, snap, I can do this. But then you start actually learning that copywriting takes work. And every project requires research and time, and outreach is a grind. And like there's a whole lot of stuff that happens. And what happens then? Your motivation, your adherence to copywriting dips. I want to show you a similar graph. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. You'll notice that the graph I was drawing is pretty similar to the Dunning-Kruger phenomenon. And Dunning-Kruger is very simply that people that are too incompetent to realize their own incompetence usually think that they're competent. Stupid people are too stupid to know that they're stupid. A lot of newbie copywriters are so bad at copywriting and so high on inspiration that they reach this, uncharitably, we'll call it the peak of Mount Stupid. But as you learn more and you gain more wisdom and insight into this career, what typically happens is your confidence wanes and you enter this valley of despair. Then you sort of enter this slope of enlightenment as you learn more and more and more, and then you enter this plateau of sustainability. Adopting this framework was a person named Seth Godin, a marketer, and he wrote a book that's famous in copywriting circles called The Dip. And he sort of draws it this way, which is to say that as you start to learn this, you're going to see more and more and more results. Say you get your first few clients, say you get your first few successes, you approach a cliff. And then what happens is you typically start to see less results as you learn more and put in more effort. Typically, this comes in the form of diminishing returns. Like at a certain point, you can only personally scale so much. Or if you even hire people, you can only scale so much. There's only so many hours in a day that you can actually do this job. Only so many hours in a day that you can actually learn copywriting. And so what happens is that you start to experience fewer results despite putting in more effort. And it's at this point where you fall off that cliff where you have to make a decision. Are you going to keep at it? Are you going to keep grinding? Or are you going to quit? What typically happens for those people is that you go through a period of sometimes months, sometimes years, that Seth Godin calls the dip. The dip happens to everybody. I have never met a copywriter who has not experienced the dip. You're going to keep putting in more and more effort to learn to get out of that Dunning-Kruger phenomenon, but you're not going to be seeing the results that you want. And so one of the things that has to happen here is that you have to find some wellspring of inspiration to motivate you again. And usually that wellspring of inspiration is not inspiration at all. It's not going to be in a YouTube video. It's not going to be another promise. That usually has to come from some sort of internal, or what we would call intrinsic motivator. And we can call that discipline if you want. But basically, the worst time to quit is after you've been suffering through the dip for some period of time, but you're starting to see your results pick up again. And it's really after that happens that you want to keep pushing, because at that point, you can start achieving mastery in this field and obviously experience the money that comes along with it. This is a very similar model. You are experiencing your first little dip, and that usually comes after inspiration wears off. Imagine you're in an airplane and the stick is pointing forward. That means the trees get bigger. You need to pull back on that stick so that the plane goes up. It's here where I talked about with the dip, the biggest intrinsic motivator that you can have that pulls you out. It's not going to be pressure from the outside. It's not going to be other people's interests. It's going to be some form of discipline that can actually help you pull out and find another peak of what we are going to call motivation. So discipline kicks in around here to pull you out of this thing that's preventing you from adhering to this. And that discipline leads to motivation. Motivation is more sustainable than inspiration, but motivation is also itself a fickle mistress. And motivation only lasts so long, and it tapers, and it goes like this. You're going to wake up some days and you're not going to feel motivated. You're not going to want to sit and hand copy a sales letter again. You're not going to want to study ads. And you're going to find that it leads to more dips. You're going to find more motivation and more dips. And you're going to need discipline to pull you out of these humps. But one thing that I want to make clear is that as time progresses, the amount of discipline you need to get out of these dips is less and less, because you've learned the discipline. You can sort of call upon that discipline again to bring you out of the dip and find motivation again. Over time, something strange happens to your brain. You start to notice a little plateau where you feel neither motivation and you don't feel like you need to call on discipline. You're just sort of puttering along, and these humps become less spiky. They become less dramatic, and you sort of operate in this little ebb where most of the time you're doing the work, despite not really being motivated to do the work and despite not really needing the discipline to do the work. And this is an adherent framework we can call habit. The best thing for newbie copywriters to do when they first start learning is to keep this in mind, to understand that your inspiration will wear off, to understand that you need some form of discipline, or if you lack discipline, some extrinsic motivating factor to get you to adhere to and learn copywriting again. And then you need to ride those waves of motivation and use discipline when you are not motivated to get you into that chair, to get you learning, to get you studying, to get you writing. And as these spikes start to temper out, you want to get to a point where no matter what, you are just doing the work out of habit. As time goes by, sometimes this takes months, sometimes this takes years, habit slowly starts to become that. And this is something that we can call passion. I got this framework from Dr. Mike. He uses this framework to describe how to get people into the gym. And I like this framework because it works for so many things. It works for copywriting, it works for wealth building, it works for investing, it works for entrepreneurship. All of these different little mechanisms of adherence are the exact same. You go through inspiration, You need discipline to sort of pull you back, pull back the stick so that you get motivated again to do stuff. And you go through these alternating cycles of motivation and needing discipline until eventually habit kicks in. And then over time, passion kicks in. Now, one other thing that I want to mention here is that you can make a lot of money as a copywriter and you can make a career as a copywriter, never getting any further than this. The most important aspect of a copywriter's career is consistency. You don't need to be passionate to be consistent. You just need to show up every single day. I have met many copywriters who have zero passion for copywriting. It's a thing that they can do, that they are sort of good at, and that makes them money. And that is more than enough for them to keep the habit. It's the people that I would say are obsessive, so into copywriting that they just live, sleep, eat, breathe, shit copywriting every single day. Those are the people that I would say become passionate. And those are the people that have, in my experience, made the most money. But that is not what you need in order to be successful. All you need is the consistency, and the consistency comes from having the habit. My goal with Copy That is to be realistic with you so that you understand that, yes, this inspiration that you can get from other copywriting gurus, it goes away. I'm here to help you with the discipline and the motivation part so that we can get you to a point of habit and consistency so that you can make that money, so that you can become successful. That's it. That is a sort of broad understanding of what it takes in terms of mindset to become a successful copywriter.